Welcome to the Boneyard with Steve Robertson. As always, I am your good friend and host, Steve Robertson, here on the Hump Day edition of the Yard. Hope you're having a great week. It's an interesting week because the spring football portal opened today. We're going to spend a little time talking about that in our first segment of the show. We'll recap the baseball game, kind of look around the league and kind of see what happened yesterday. We've got a cool top 10 list for you today, too. A few things going on in the world of college sports. And I'm going to save one of those for the end of the show. We'll talk a little bit about this Nico situation and what I think it all means in the grand scheme of things. I've wanted to take a couple days to kind of think about it and absorb it before commenting publicly about it. So we'll save that for a little bit later in the show. But, one of the things that I love about social media, number one, I get most of my news there. Right, and you got to be careful because, especially on Facebook, I mean, there's a lot of, fake, aggregate, AI bot type things that will take other people's content and distort it in the effort to monetize it. And then, like you see it in the Facebook groups all the time. Huge loss as Mississippi State quarterback leaves, and it's like a walk-on. A guy you never heard of. We've gone through that a lot of clickbait out there. But the thing about social media is so cool is we can all use it, right? We can make our voices heard. And one of the things I like about that is because I find people out there that kind of see the world as I do and maybe provide some information about topics that I may not be well versed on. Love that aspect of it. I love the fact that there are so many people out there that have strong opinions about things. There are a lot of people that have more opinions than facts. That's true of any walk of life, whether they use social media or not. But there's a lot of hot takes out there that not only are they just wrong, they're just silly. And there are a lot of people that make themselves look foolish. And so I like that aspect of it. That's one of the reasons I really wish people's real names, were on Twitter, that kind of stuff. On Facebook, it's mainly their names, but people sometimes will get on Twitter and put together a burner account or whatever, and they'll say just absolutely awful and horrendous and stupid and short-sighted things. And I know a lot of people do it for engagement and entertainment. Maybe they are lacking something in their lives, and they live online. And that's the thing about being online. One of my favorite bands, Bad Omens, has a song called Artificial Suicide, and it's basically about deleting your social media profile, right? Because so many people live online, and their internet persona at times is probably greater than maybe who they are as a person. And that's sad to me. It really is. It's sad. Because you can be whoever you want to be online. It's a shame that so many people choose to be stupid. But all that understood, I read these things on social media at times, and number one, it makes me feel better about myself. You know what I mean? And don't you read that stuff too? It's like, number one, I see the stuff that some people are into and involved in, and I think, man, I would never, ever, ever be involved in that. So I'm good. I'm good. But it's also one of those things too. I'm a firm believer that everybody should live and let live. You be who and what you want to be. And it's a lot easier to be who you want to be than what you want to be, right? I just wish more people chose to be good people. Yeah, there's a lot of people out there that they're caught up in character assassinations and things of that nature, and they think that's the way to go. Let me assure you, that's not, quote, being real. It's not. And there are just some very hurtful and biteful things that I see out there. And I know that you would never say these things to somebody's face. Now, you say that you would, but you and I both know that you wouldn't. There's a handful of people out there, maybe 5-10% that would. They would say it. I'm one of those kinds of people that if I have something to say, I don't have to send a tweet. That's just, I use that to convey information to all of you. Occasionally I get out there and get involved in discussions with all of you, and I love and appreciate each and every one of you that follows me on social media. But there's some other people out there, it's just, hey, we've got to be agent provocateurs to promote engagement because we're such poor writers. And there are other people out there that think, well, I know more than this person, so I'm going to get out here and try to eviscerate them online and then you come back later and find out that you were wrong and never admit that you were wrong. It's a big part of life is being able to recognize when maybe perhaps you don't have all the facts right. And so every time there is a controversy in, I don't know, the American culture, or even around the world sometimes, but mainly, current events, immediately we split into tribes. Immediately. I would like to think that most of us are kind of in the middle and a little more moderate in that respect. It's like, hey, this doesn't really affect me, so I don't need to have a strong opinion about it. But, somebody gets arrested, and immediately there are those that say, oh, he acted justifiably. Other people will say, he's just, garbage. And the truth of the matter is both of those things are probably incorrect. But then it doesn't even become about the topic anymore. It's not about the person. It becomes about the tribe. And I don't know if somebody hands these talking points out. It's like, okay, here's who we hate. Here are the things that we hate. And so, hey, steady as you go. Is that the way that life works? I'm a free-thinking person. I think for myself. There are times that I catch myself sometimes being caught up in the thoughts of others. There are other people out there. I say, well, I respect that person. Maybe they know more than I do. But then as I begin to kind of research, I find out that maybe their initial take was incorrect and they themselves didn't have all the data to formulate an opinion. We all went through that with COVID, right? I mean, in the beginning, right, we were very trusting. Maybe 1 or 2% weren't. But in the beginning, we'd never dealt with anything like this before. We thought, hey, we have to band together as a people. Let's all work together. Remember, right? We were all supposed to stay home for 2 weeks. Stop the spread. And we were all like, cool. Okay, there's some people that, have necessary jobs. Hospital, firefighters, people that work in the service industry. There's a lot of that, too, that people say, hey, these are essential jobs. These folks need to work. And there's going to be a set of rules they have to follow. And then most of us just said, you know what, okay, cool. I can work from home. This is what I have to do to save mankind. And so let's all just kind of work together. And then 2 weeks turned into this and then into that. And then there's all these forced closures and things like that. And I don't want to politicize the issue, but there was so much that we were told in the beginning of this whole thing was absolutely false. And we lost some good people. We did. And it's so interesting how people want to politicize that too. It was a worldwide pandemic. And it's just so interesting to me that we can even find something like that to politicize and to split hairs over. We're all the same people living on the same planet having a similar experience. And when something like that happens, your COVID, an illness, sickness is no respecter of persons. You remember even Tom Hanks got COVID. Remember when Tom Hanks got COVID, we're like, oh, no, not Forrest Gump. Because we thought it was a death sentence, right? Turns out he was okay, But I think it's important to kind of understand, those feelings of unity, in many respects, were kind of bound by ignorance, right? And I don't mean that with a negative connotation. We just simply didn't know what to do, and we didn't know what to expect, so we all kind of relied on each other. We still produced a ton of content. We had no sports to cover. We'd recommend sometimes, some Netflix series to watch and things like that, kind of help you make it through. And there was such a feeling of community. Even on our Mississippi State sports boards, people were like, hey, this is what we're dealing with. We had a COVID thread that we had to try to keep everything, consolidated to, so you didn't have it in every single thread. We just try to make it as easy as possible, and that way, too, you could see it. Hey, this is the COVID thread, so if you don't want COVID information, you don't have to read this, but we'll write some other content. And so I share that with all of you because I wish we felt more respect and love for each other on a daily basis and not just in times of crisis. I got so many comments when I did my little 9/11 anniversary show back during football season. And I remember those feelings riding down the highway and seeing so many American flags, whether it be bumper stickers or T-shirts, A lot of people had the flags flying off their window. And I said, we're all in this thing together. It doesn't matter who we vote for. It doesn't matter where we live, how much money we make. We're all Americans. And we've lost it. We have. We've lost it. We truly have. And it's our fault. It is. Nobody pushed us in these directions. So my hope is that, when you see that kind of hatefulness online, let's not participate in it. It's a big saying in the message board community, don't feed the trolls. Same thing on social media. When you got people that are out there just trolling for attention, saying these hurtful things, just don't engage. I'm just encouraging you because, number one, you're giving them what they want, which is so much desired for attention, but you're only making your own mentions and your own life less serene. My serenity is very important to me. It is. And so I hope yours is as well. All right, let's thank our friends at Bulldog Burger Company, longtime sponsors of this show. We love Bulldog Burger Company. We have for a long time. I love going to eat at Bulldog Burger Company, whether I eat there or get it to go, because the quality of the meal is just simply unsurpassed. I've mentioned before what a great job they do packaging things up when you got to get it to go. So a lot of times you go get takeout, man, you almost need somebody to go with you to get it all taken care of. Not really the case at Bulldog Burger Company. They do such a good job. It can kind of be a one-person job if it's just you and your family. Yeah, it's true. And me and the bride sometimes get it to go, and I'll go eat at the spa with her, and you get it back. Instead of you opening up this, styrofoam container where everything just kind of runs together like an old Thanksgiving Day plate that rode around in the floorboard of your car on the way home, everything is very neatly packaged to ensure the highest quality meal possible. Maybe you don't need it to go. Maybe you want to go put your feet under their table and just let them take care of everything, which is always great. I love a night out to eat. I do. I love to be able to visit. I'm a very, very external person, right? I love to be able to get out and connect with people and just kind of get to visit. Let somebody else kind of handle the heavy lifting on the meal. And nobody does that better than Bulldog Burger Company. They will take care of you, whether it be a lunch out with with work colleagues or a night out with friends or dinner with family. Bulldog Burger Company is the place to go. 3 great locations to serve you: University Drive in Stark Vegas, Gloucester Street there in Tupelo, Lake Harbor Drive in the Ridge and Flowood area. Get the spring rolls as your appetizer. They'll make you and everybody around you better looking. In addition to that, find your own favorite when it comes to their great restaurant quality hamburgers. You'll be glad you did. Get that chocolate shake to go. You can ride that ride home with a smile. Bulldog Burger Company, the place where people go to meet. MEAT. Okay, let's talk a little bit portal. Now, we already had the Ja'Cory Whitehead story ready to go. Found out late yesterday and early this morning there were a handful of other guys going in the portal. And so I want to go over who they are, what they've done, and kind of what it all means. They kind of give you guys maybe a code of conduct in some respects. Already, I'm seeing the hysterical post on Facebook is people are wringing their hands and clutching their pearls about players they don't even know. Oh, they're leaving? Oh, my gosh. Yes, they're leaving. And it's good for everybody involved. If they're not going to play here, we need that scholarship spot for somebody who will, and they need an opportunity to get on the field somewhere else. It is the right thing to do. It's not anything personal. They're not leaving us. They're leaving the Mississippi State program to try to go somewhere they can play. These are not major contributors that are going to wreck our season. If anything, what makes it a better thing is you may actually get somebody else to come in here that can make a contribution. All right, so let's start. Probably the name that you guys know the best, Dontae Russell, of course, younger brother of DeMonte Russell. Dontae, of course, played some in 2023. We had so many issues with injuries on the defensive line, and he went out there and played and actually made 19 tackles. And you remember that game against Georgia? He was giving those guys the blues, man. He comes out first play of the game, and it's a TFL. He ends up with 19 tackles that year and 1.5 for a sack. And we thought, hey, this is a guy that maybe can be a third down pass rushing specialist for us. Last year, we make a change schematically. And I don't know that he had a true position in the new defense. Yes, you could line him up on obvious, third and long situations and put him at a 7-tech, but he only played in one game last year, and that was against Eastern Kentucky. Had 4 tackles, 1 solo, 3 assists. And of the players that have left today, that's the biggest contributor that has left the program. And that is not in any way to be critical of Dontae Russell. We knew he was a guy that was a little bit lighter than a lot of the edges out there. Probably a guy that's really considered more of a tweener. A lot of guys with his measurables end up being linebacker. I don't know that he could run and cover well enough to be linebacker. But he is a really good pass rusher, even though he is a little bit light in the britches, okay? And so in Zach Arnett's scheme, there's a home for a guy like that. In this new scheme with this new alignment, maybe not so much. And so Dontae Russell had to make a decision. It's like, hey, I can stay here if they'll let me, and I'm probably not going to play. I've had some conversations with Dontae today. We traded a few messages, and he goes, hey, thanks for everything. I'm just looking for a new home. We wish him the best. There are no hard feelings on our part. We don't have any problem with Dontae Russell leaving. We wish him the best. You hear me say it all the time on this show. You only get a short time in life to play sports. I wouldn't want to be a backup anywhere. I would not want to ride anybody's bench no matter what that afforded me. I want to go play. These guys are competitors. That's what made them SEC prospects in the first place, is their willingness to compete. And I don't want anybody that's comfortable to be a bench warmer. And Dontae Russell is one of those people. He is not comfortable being a bench warmer. He wants to be on the field somewhere so he can play the game that he loves. And again, we wish him the best. Mason Clinton has also elected to move on. He's already announced his decision to sign with Southern Miss. Matter of fact, we made his graphic. And there's always a method to the madness and things that we do, right? Everything out there is a quest to get information for all of you. Everything we do. Mason Clinton originally signed with Louisiana Lafayette, redshirted there, only played one game, makes the move to East Mississippi, and I submit to you, he was probably the best defensive lineman at East Mississippi last year. And yes, that includes Zay Hardy. Yes, yes, yes. Mason Clinton signs, comes in, competes. He's not going to play. And we oversigned on the defensive line, as you guys are well aware. And the initial plan is like, hey, let's go get some junior college guys to make sure we have something, right? We got to make sure we have some depth. Because you never know what the portal's going to look like. Well, then, we get in the portal and we kind of start recruiting over some of those guys. And so we bring everybody in, put them all in the meeting room, put them all in the practice field, let them compete. And guys tend to figure it out for themselves. Mason Clinton, now moving on, he is originally a native of Hattiesburg, Mississippi, a product of Petal High School, a young man, a tremendous young man. It just doesn't appear that he was good enough to play here. And that's okay. He came in here, he gave it a shot. And he got a semester of SEC football under his belt. And he's like, hey, same situation. I gotta go on the field and play. So he's headed to Southern Miss. And I'm sure he'll play down there. You know what? And good for him. Go make it easier on his family to be there. Not that it was a bad drive from Hattiesburg to Starkville. But again, this is a scenario. This is the new world of college athletics. There are going to be times you oversign at certain positions, and then you have the opportunity to basically let guys kind of compete it out in the spring, and then you decide who can play and who can't, and then you have to have some honest conversations. And, of course, some guys are going to go in the portal next week. They need spring game tape, But some of these guys are already ready to go. Ja'Cory Whitehead's one of them. Ja'Cory Whitehead was the guy that came in, went to see him play in high school, and thought he was a little beefy for a tight end. And I'm thinking, well, maybe he can be an attached tight end. Of course, he commits. New coaching staff comes in, kind of changes a few things there. He's not really a fit. He comes in, they say, hey, why don't we make an offensive lineman out of him? He really doesn't want to do that. He wants to be a tight end. He and I have traded some messages today, too, and he goes, hey, in the story, can you put out there that I'm a tight end? Absolutely, Ja'Cory. Absolutely. But he's another guy that came in that has not seen the field. And again, it's early in his career, but isn't it better to find that out now? You know what I mean? It's like, why waste 1 or 2 years in a program that you're not going to play? He's a freshman last year, took the redshirt year, did not record any stats. He's from McAdory High School over there in McCalla, Alabama. And so he's going to move on. And again, a guy that I like a lot, but it just wasn't a good fit. We make a change in offensive philosophy, and he was a guy that was kind of a borderline tight end in the first place. And I don't mean from a talent standpoint, but as far as fit goes. And he doesn't fit what we want in our tight ends right now. So the merciful thing is to have the honest conversation. And so now he's in the portal. We wish him the best. And listen, 6'6", 270 pounds. He is going to find an opportunity somewhere. And you know what? If he could ever embrace the possibility of maybe playing right tackle, he might play football for a long time. But you can't force somebody to play a position they're not comfortable with. And especially if they're not bought into the position change. So he's moving on, and again, we wish him the best. Jesse Rommel, an offensive lineman that signed with us out of the portal in December, out of James Madison, comes in, and, we've got to upgrade that room, and I can tell you, walking out at practice, the handful of times we've been able to go out there, we are a short offensive line. We have got to find some tackles. And I think Jesse, if he had stayed, was going to end up playing guard. What's interesting, there are some guys that are kind of born and built to play guard, and some guys that are born and built to play tackle. And there are some guys that play tackle that kind of have a guard build, and that's kind of the case with Jesse. Another great young guy, right? You got to make difficult decisions when you run an operation of this magnitude. This isn't the Boy Scouts, this is the Southeastern Conference. And we would be doing a disservice to this young man if we weren't honest with him about his prospects of playing here. So another guy that has never played it down for us got here in January, and now he was departing, and he will be with his fourth program, of his college career. And so wish him the best. It's not an indictment on Jeff Levy or on Mississippi State or on you or on me or on Starkville or Davis Wade Stadium or our facilities or Zach Selman or Dr. Mark Keenum. None of that stuff. Bully. Nobody's to blame here. Everybody's got to do things for themselves. And so, you work through all those things, and, those are your 4 scholarship players as of now that have moved on. And then, of course, Weir, the quarterback, walk-on quarterback, came in here and, man, worked and worked. He was a great teammate at Mississippi State. Jake's got a year of eligibility left. And so the reality of that is, Jake's not going to play in the NFL. And so Jake needs to go try to get on the field somewhere. And if that means an FCS school, then God bless him, man. That guy came in here and gave everything he had to Mississippi State football, and he served a need on our team. And he was not going to play. And again, you can be around it, you can get your education, you can make some friends and make some memories, but there's always going to be that little voice in your head that's the competitive fire that says, you know what, Jake, let's give it one chance somewhere else. Maybe it's Northwestern State. Maybe it's Mississippi College. Maybe it's Delta State. I don't know. But let's go get on a field and play. And maybe we only get 1 year left to do this. So let's go bet on ourselves and see if we can't find a roster spot or maybe even a scholarship spot somewhere else and go compete for a job, maybe get some playing time before we have to go, make a living in the real world. And so none of these players that have left our roster today are leaving with maybe a negative label attached to these guys. And I think it's important for me to get out here in this platform to kind of, let's just talk about the individual. We need the scholarship spot, and Jake wasn't on scholarship, at least not athletic scholarship. But, we need these scholarships because we're oversigned right now. And we still got to go sign some more players. So, yes, there will be some more defections after the spring game. You never know. I mean, today's only Wednesday. I mean, something could pop up between now and Saturday. I would think not. I'm not expecting that. But you never rule it out. Now, the portal's going to run to the 25th. It's only open for 10 days. You don't have to make a decision within the 10 days about where you're transferring to, but you have to officially begin the process to facilitate a transfer away from your previous program within these 10 days. And the sooner we get this portal open and done, in my honest opinion, is I think there should be one window. That's how I feel. I think there's one window in December, and then you got spring practice. Unless you graduate, I think there could be a provision. Hey, I couldn't graduate in December, but I'm in a situation kind of like Jake Weir where I just want to go play somewhere. And maybe you graduate in the spring and then you go. That's my personal opinion. I know some people would say, well, we don't want to restrict the rights of the student athletes. Well, here's the thing about that. At some point, we've got to have some controls in place to protect the schools, the coaches, and the programs. We have overcorrected. Now, used to, the portal was open 365 days a year. So, if Mike Leach went out there and had to chew on somebody, they could go get their feelings hurt and go jump in the portal. Well, I'll just show you, coach, and go get in the portal. At least now we've got a little more structure, but I think we should go to one window. That's what makes sense to me. Do it in December. Guys can have the opportunity to take visits, and, and then you get the benefit of spring practice with your new school. And again, with the provision is if you're a grad transfer in May, I don't think you should be able to transfer in December and then out in May, because you're going to have a lot of people out there, and there's a lot of people involved that are making a lot of money on these players that maybe shouldn't. So let's just say, for an example, let's say that you are a John Q quarterback, from Bunker Hill, Mississippi, and you don't know anything about the recruiting process. And so all of a sudden, you have this, quote, agent. And this agent says, hey, listen, go ahead and go to Southern Miss. And go there and let's see if we can't get things going. We get a little money from them. You get a chance to build up some numbers, and then we'll get you out of there. Well, then they go in there, number one, thinking about leaving. From the beginning, hey, just go in there, work hard, get your numbers, and then we'll get out of there, make some more money. Well, then John Q. quarterback from Bunker Hill, Mississippi, goes and takes Southern Miss to a Sun Belt championship in year number 2. Okay, well, now I'm going to transfer to State or Ole Miss, and I can get this much money from State or Ole Miss. Okay, so we take more money. Now we leave our teammates behind at Southern Miss, the coaches and players that we've all built such good bonds with, made some memories with, and had an opportunity to go win a conference championship with, but now I'm going somewhere else. And let's say I sign with Ole Miss. And let's say they give me a decent little signing bonus. Well, I go through spring and I find out that I'm not going to win the job. Well, guess what? Now I'm going to portal again. I go in the portal, and all of a sudden, maybe I don't get the same amount of money, but I could probably get something. I could probably get something from Tennessee these days. Sun Belt title-winning quarterback. Got a semester under Lane Kiffin there at Ole Miss. Well, now I'll go here and get some money. Well, then I go out there and I have a great year at Tennessee. And so it's my third school in 3 years, but I can say, hey, listen, I came in here and I got you guys into the playoff. We did a great thing, and I appreciate everything you've done for me, but if I'm going to stick around, I got to have some more money. More than you're promising me. And then all of a sudden, behind the scenes, you've got a quote, agent saying, hey, quarterback from Tennessee is going to get in the portal. He's unhappy there. They hadn't treated him well there. We think you'll treat him well. And next thing you know, they leave, and they go to somewhere in the Pac-12, and they get more money. Now, somebody would say, but Steve, it's a free market economy. You know what? I agree with that, but I also think we've got to have a little more guardrails in here, because where in life and in sports do you get to go test your value twice a year? Now, you as an individual, I'm under contract. I don't know what you have in your life, but if you're not under contract, if you just have like a working agreement or whatever, you can change jobs once a month if you want to. I mean, of course, at some points you get branded a job hopper, but you have the ability to do that. You can change your vocation. You can change, your schedule, whatever you want to do. You can go find a job working at night if you want to. You can find a job working at home. So again, I understand that. But when there is a contract, there is an expectation from all parties involved in this contract that this contract is fulfilled. Now, if you get to a point you're unhappy with your contract, we could potentially renegotiate that, right? But I'm under contract. And so I don't get to go talk to competing networks every 6 months to assess my value and then make my, my affiliate company feel like, hey, every 6 months we got to go deal with this. Guys, hey, if you don't pay me this, I'm going to leave. And they're going to be like, you know what, Steve, you got 3 more years left on your deal, so no, you're not going anywhere. And someone would say, that's not fair. Well, sure it is. I agreed to it. I signed my name to it. I accepted their compensation on a monthly basis because of the content that I provide. But I can't go out and do all this and produce, 1,000 stories a quarter and then go back to them and say, hey, I was talking to so-and-so, and this is what they've offered me if I'm willing to make the job. They would be like, go get bent. You can work out your contract. If you get to the end of your contract and you elect not to renew, you're free to go do what you want to do. You'll be a free agent. But this free agency thing at the end of every semester is not good for the game. I don't think it's good for the student athletes, and I don't think it's good for their education either. And there are some people out there that get what you can get. Well, you better get it now. I can assure you that. You better get it now, because the branding that you are putting in place, the brand you're building, is not one of loyalty, and is certainly not one of commitment. And at some point, sports is going to end. At some point, you're not going to be on anybody's roster. You're not going to be running out that tunnel with the music playing. And you're going to have to go get a real job like everybody else. And so, that's the thing that I think is important to recognize, is the current system, the way that it is set up, we are putting ourselves in a situation that we are basically letting greed drive so much of this. And again, that's not about these individuals here. Not one of these guys left because of money. They left because they want to go play. And I respect and support all of them in that quest. But the way this system is structured, these players get unfairly maligned because of those that are trying to manipulate the system for their own financial gain. And listen, I don't want to be the old Pollyanna guy, I'll get off my lawn or whatever. But we have lost a lot in college athletics. Guys, we're not even televising the spring game this weekend. Some of you are saying, really? It's not going to be on the ESPN network? It's not going to be on the SEC network or the app? No, it's not. And we are in the majority. I believe it's 14 of 16 SEC schools are not televising the spring game. And that's what the portal and NIL have stolen from you. One of the things. So now you were thinking, it'll be great this weekend. I can sit around this weekend, watch the spring game, watch a little Bulldog baseball. Now you can't. You can't watch it. Well, why aren't they televising it, Steve? Well, it's because everybody's worried about these poachers. And it's not just the fact that it's not just the elite players. It's those guys that were maybe high-profile recruits. And there's some, some street agent out there that's like, hey, they're not giving you your reps, and they start shopping around, right? And even if they're not even an official representative of the player, they'll go start calling around. And it's like, hey, if so and so gets in the portal, Would you be interested? Oh, well, yeah. Well, here's the asking price. And then they go to the kid and say, hey, I've got these 3 deals for you. You want to go get in the portal? It's true. We have made this thing such a mess. The adults in this have failed the student athletes. Again, I'm very much for compensation for student athletes. I think that is long overdue. But what we're dealing with now, not only is it not sustainable, it's not fair to anybody, including a student athlete. And that's the thing you say, but Steve, that's not true. Well, what if my starting quarterback's making $1 million a year and I can find somebody in the portal that I can pay $500,000 to? And it's crazy to think we're talking about that when we used to have, it was a big deal years ago when a certain school in this state would drop off $10,000 and a red backpack. And we were like, oh my gosh, look at this. And look at what we're doing now. It's crazy. And so if I have a quarterback that's been loyal to me and built himself up, and I can go find somebody better for less money, and I just say, hey, we're going to cut him. Would that be fair? Probably would be fair. May not be right. May not be morally right or ethical. But if the shoe was on the other foot, that's the thing that I've noticed again about the social media outrage, right? If Tennessee had cut Nico, it's like, hey, we got a guy in the portal this got comparable numbers and ability for half the money. We're going to take him. There would be blood in the streets of Knoxville because it's not an even-handed standard. And I think it should be. And that's why I think we need to change some things, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later in the show. All right, time for today's Top 10 list. As always, brought to you by Calido Guitars. That's Calido Guitars. Calido Guitars, your one-stop shop for all of your guitar needs, whether it be a new instrument, a new gig bag, a case, strings, anything that you need guitar-related. Look no further than Calido Guitars. And there's a lot of incentive. Number one, they're a great company to do business with. Owned and operated by Mississippi State folks. And we always want to keep business in the family whenever we can. You get a high-quality instrument, expert advice, exemplary customer service, great selection to name brand equipment, and rather than throw that money at somebody else that's going to, you never know where your money's going to go, right? You want a quality instrument, but you can also help Mississippi State at the same time. Visit CalidoGuitars.com or call 979-297-4733. And by shopping with them as a listener of this show, you mention promo code BSR. It's synonymous with the show, Beautiful Steve Robertson. You get a 10% discount off your purchase, free shipping, no sales tax unless you live in the state of Texas, and a 5% donation of your purchase price to the Bulldog Initiative / Bulldog Excellence Fund. Absolutely outstanding incentive. And it's a place you would want to do business with anyway. But then when you find out they're Bulldogs and that your purchase is going to help Mississippi State field more competitive athletic teams, it's a no-brainer. Calido Guitars. All right. Another request. Had somebody hit me up a while back. I just found this buried in the messages, just scrolling through to look for top 10 ideas. Steve, one of my guilty pleasures of the 1980s and the early 90s was Annie Lennox and the Eurythmics. I would love to hear a top 10 list and hear your take on the Eurythmics, your pal, Patrick. Well, Patrick, okay. I don't think that I have a guilty pleasure when it comes to the Eurythmics. As a matter of fact, if we're being completely honest, and if I can't be honest on the Boneyard, where can I be honest? I didn't like this short-haired Annie Lennox, man. I didn't like it. I know it's kind of that European look, but there's something about that. Number one, she is a beautiful woman, extremely talented. But something about her image in the beginning kind of bothered me. It did. And then when she released the solo album, Diva, we played that at our restaurant regularly. And it was great mood music. And I began to think, she is an adult contemporary artist, but she had a little more grit to her in the 80s. And I began to develop a new appreciation for Annie Lennox. And what you may not know is Annie Lennox was originally part of a punk rock outfit. Yeah, how about that? She was waiting tables, and Dave found her. And I'm sure that it was a pickup line or whatever. Hey, I've got a band I think he'd be great in. And then they eventually left that band and formed a new band called The Tourists. They recorded an album, had some moderate success, and then Dave and Annie left and formed a duo. And there are a lot of people that do that, right? They just leave and say, you know what, we're better off just kind of sequencing everything and using drum machines. And they began to work as a duo and became known as the Eurythmics. Signed a record deal, had some moderate success, and then album number 2. Album number 2 hit, and then everything changed. And they were perfect for MTV. Because you had this 6-foot, very powerful woman kind of fronting this whole thing. And then Dave, of course, is back there just kind of like as the support act. An incredible musician in his own right. Produced a lot of hit records too. But I thought, hey, Patrick presents the challenge. I can come through. I can come through, Patrick. And thanks for listening to the show and your support of the top 10 list. Thanks so much for your suggestion. So here we are. The top 10 songs from the Eurythmics. You may not realize this. They've sold over 75 million records worldwide. Yeah, and many of you think, well, they had a few hits here and there. No, they had a bunch. They had a bunch. So here we go, number 10. And this has got a little more grit to it. And I love the guitar on this one. I do. And I don't know if this song is politically correct these days, but we're going to still, recognize its, uniqueness. It's a song called I Need a Man. And it is basically it's very, very, very centered on the manly man, right? And there's probably some lyrics in there today that some people may find offensive. But she wanted a manly man. She wanted an alpha male. And so she wrote and sang about that. But the lyrical content doesn't apply to me. Maybe it does to you. But the music itself is great. Great. Number 9, this goes back to the beginning. And it actually is one of the greatest songs, I think, in the catalog. And you say, but Steve, it's number 9. It's because of the fact there's some really cool stuff coming up. But it's Love is a Stranger. And many of you have felt that way. And what's interesting about that, too, I have read recently that 80% of American women are basically dating 20% of the American men. I can't remember the age and the demographics behind all that. But that's interesting to me. So that means there's 80% of the guys out there that are either not interested in pursuing a relationship, or the majority of these women find these guys undateable. Either way, it's kind of a sad state of affairs. And so for them, love is a stranger. And I feel very fortunate and blessed in the respect that I have had some good relationships in my life. I've had some that not so good. And some of them were my fault. It's true. I'm not going to sit out here and be a victim. Sometimes I have been the villain. And I'd rather be the villain than the victim. But I've never lived my life in a way that I wanted to hurt other people, especially in matters of the heart. Maybe you see things differently. But every relationship that I have ever entered, I hoped would be a long-term relationship. Didn't always work out that way. And we got to be careful what we're calling relationships too, right? There's some encounters out there that aren't really relationships. But yeah. But it's sad to me to think that the percentages these days, and I don't know if you guys are familiar with that podcast, whatever, kind of controversial, but there's a lot of discussions about this sort of stuff. And we talk about red flags and, the things that a lot of people are doing to kind of screw up their lives. And they speak about that, about how there's these unrealistic expectations that people have of each other. And that they polled the panel, I think it was 5 young ladies, and said, would you rather have a meaningful, fulfilling relationship with one person or have Instagram? And 4 of the 5 picked Instagram. They would rather have Instagram and the attention, the artificial attention that comes with that, than have a real relationship. And that kind of goes back to this whole 80-20 thing, right? It's nuts. All right, number 8. There Must Be an Angel. Playing with My Heart. Maybe you remember this one. You probably had forgotten that one if you were alive in the 80s. But that was one of the later hits. And lyrically, I think it's superb. I think the vocal delivery is absolutely outstanding. Another great vocal delivery from Annie Lennox is the number 7 song, Who's That Girl? Not to be confused with Madonna's song, Who's That Girl? Of course, that was, I believe, part of a motion picture soundtrack. But Who's That Girl is a little bit different. And I think it's kind of special in its own way. All right, number 6, and this is one of the more serious songs, right? And that's the thing, the Eurythmics were not really a silly band, but it's a thorn in my side. And again, I think from a musical composition standpoint, it is absolutely outstanding. Absolutely outstanding. All right, I think the top 5 are going to be songs that you all know extremely well. Those of you from my generation anyway. Number 5, it's a duet with Aretha Franklin, a song of female empowerment. Sisters are doing it for themselves. And it's so interesting, and I got to be careful how I say this, but, this whole girl power thing is not new. And that's the thing. You go back and think about how difficult it is in any industry to make a living, right? I mean, it's just how life works. But, in male-dominated industries, it's very difficult for women to be taken seriously. And that is not a new phenomenon. And this song was a huge, number one, you get 2 powerhouse vocalists like Annie Lennox and Aretha Franklin together. It's like, how can you go wrong, right? I mean, how can you go wrong with that? But the song was originally written for Tina Turner. And you can kind of hear that, right? I mean, when you hear it, you're like, well, that kind of makes sense. Guys, this song is 40 years old. Yeah, it came out in 1985. Super cool track. All right, number 4. And this is one of the more critically acclaimed songs in the Eurythmics catalog. And maybe it didn't get quite the airplay that some other ones did, but it was a song that was in pretty much regular circulation on MTV. And it's Missionary Man. Don't mess with the Missionary Man. And that's kind of what it's about, right? And I don't know if that's like double entendre. But again, I think compositionally the music works really well. And then Annie Lennox delivers this very, very, very powerful vocal performance. All right, top 3. We could probably debate who 2 and 3 should be, or which songs they should be. But number 1, I think we'd all agree on. But number 3 is Would I Lie to You? Well, chances are you would, right? Everybody has a self-serving thing. I was watching a show last night. Dana and I are watching The Outsider right now. It's a Stephen King thing. And kind of creepy, but pretty fascinating too. It's very Stephen King-y, right? There's always something supernatural going on in the Stephen King mind. And Stephen King, I think, we go back to the social media thing. I think Stephen King has ostracized some of his fans, but with some of his political views, I try to be very apolitical in that respect. But yeah, this guy was talking last night with Jason Bateman's in the first couple episodes, I guess, and so he's speaking with his wife, this gentleman, police officer, talking about relationships and about how they love each other, they love their spouses, but there are things you keep to yourself. And I guess that's part of it, is just kind of being an individual. But there are always these little lies that we tell each other we think to preserve each other's feelings. And, some of that is just kind of part of love, right? But you would never, nor should you ever, lie about anything of importance, right? Right. Sometimes, as a man, you just kind of go along, right? But when somebody's going to do something stupid, you owe it to them, right? You owe it to them to get it out there. Number 2, and this is a song that I think has probably been forgotten some, and people forget how huge it was. It's Here Comes the Rain Again, falling on my head like a new emotion. Great vocal delivery. Haunting. And Annie Lennox, what a powerhouse, right? But number one, we all know it, and you guys enjoy it at Duty Noble Field and at Davis Wade Stadium. It's the Sweet Dreams. We do the Sweet Dreams remix, right? But Sweet Dreams, many of you have heard the song and did not know that it was from the Eurythmics. Sweet dreams are made of this. Who am I to disagree? Very, very thought-provoking song, right? But that song changed everything. The Eurythmics went from being just kind of, a club band to being kind of a worldwide phenomenon and became a favorite on MTV really because of that song. And next thing you know, people are like, this Annie Lennox is really, really good. And they were a tandem. And they worked it out together, and they've gotten back together and done some one-off type reunion type shows, and they sell out every time they do it. But again, 75 million records, you feel like you can't be wrong, right? So there you go. That's your top 10 list, Patrick. I hope I did it justice. If you have ideas for the top 10 list, reach out, let us know. You can find me on all forms of social media at Scout Steve R. And, of course, Roy Samonti, the keeper of the list, at Dogmatic67 on Twitter, DAWGMATIC 67. And you can find our great list on Spotify under that same handle. All right, next segment of the show brought to you by Campus Bookmart, a Starkvillian institution. And we'll do our Close of Blair player of the game after this segment. But Campus Bookmart, been serving this great fan base for so many years, man. I mean, they're so dependable. And that's what you want in life, right? I want to get exactly what I want. When I order it, I want it to be exactly what I wanted. That's what you get at Campus Bookmart. Whether it be apparel or gift ideas or everything you need to decorate out your fan cave, you can find it at Campus Bookmart. Don't overthink it. Stick with the winners. Stick with Campus Bookmart. Next time you're in town, go by and see their smiling faces. If you can't make it to town, but you'd love to support a Starkville business, so we always encourage that, visit them on the World Wide Web at campusbookmart.net. And by being a loyal Boneyard listener, we'll give you a phrase that pays. You know it, BSR, Beautiful Steve Robertson, gets you free shipping on all orders over $75. Any order less than $75, absolutely incomplete. And again, graduation's coming up. Think about those diploma frames, and maybe you've thought, you know what? Our niece is graduating. Be the favorite aunt and uncle and take care of that. It's a timeless gift. You probably didn't even think about it until you listened to this show. All right, Bulldogs, we're not going to spend a lot of time on this. Bulldogs obviously take care of business last night in 7 innings against Southern. 16-2 is your final. Bulldogs really kind of got it going early on, and that's what needs to happen in these games. You want to get out there and get to moving. I was a little bit worried about their stolen bases. I didn't think that they would make it a game, but I thought they could make us uncomfortable. But you know what? In order to steal the base, you have to get on base. And give Southern a lot of credit. They got a lot of speed. They were able to get down the line a little bit, but really kind of stressed the defense, and State rose to the challenge there. A lot of players played in this ball game, but Ryan McPherson gets his first college start, strikes out the side there in the first in a 1-2-3 inning, and then State basically says, you know what, we're going to go ahead and let everybody relax and enjoy the rest of their Tuesday evening because we're going to get things taken care of. On a full count, Garrick Fry singles to the right side. Sawyer Reeves in walks, and then Sullivan walks, and we knew walks are going to be a part of this ball game. Bases loaded, wild pitch. I guess it's technically scored a pass ball. That allows a run to score. And then Hunter Hines doubles down the right field line, brings in 2 more to make it a 3-0 ball game. Bryce Chance gets a bunt down. Now give the third baseman from Southern a lot of credit here. It looked like off the bat that Bryce is just going to be able to prance in the first, and give him credit for hustling down the line, because this play from the third baseman at Southern, incredible. Made it close. Bryce beats it out, narrowly beats it out. They review it, and sure enough, yeah, he did make it. But, man, I didn't think he was even going to draw a throw, and then the guy nearly throws him out. And I like to, compliment people and reward them when they play good baseball, and that was a big league play, even though he didn't quite get the out. Bryce immediately still second. I turned to Mike Nemeth before it even happens. I said, hey, I'm stealing right here. Not just because of the fact that I want to, get out of the double play, but because of the delay, Bryce has had a chance to kind of, get his air back and be able to go, get his legs back under him, because he had to hightail it down to first. Then he's still second easily. And then Gatlin Sanders, who has been struggling a little bit here as of late, singles back up the middle, 2-run score. It's a 5-0 ball game. And then, throwing error by the pitcher there to throw it away. He takes second. Wild pitch sends him a third. And then Aaron Downs hits a liner that nearly gets loose there. Athletic play by the shortstop. Kind of has to extend himself there and elevate, makes the grab. And then Michael O'Brien grounds out the second. Run scores to make it a 6-0 game, and then Ross Highfield strikes out. But 6 runs in the first for State. McPherson gets the first 2 and then gives up a solo shot to Latulus. And the numbers on the board were incorrect. It's so interesting. I mean, the file, the data, that's not Mississippi State's fault. Southern sends the file, and it didn't match the numbers. And what's crazy about it, the numbers that they sent that were on our scoreboard didn't match what was on their website or on the NCAA website. Nothing matched. But solo shot to right, makes it a 6-1 ball game. He gets Dominic Joseph a strikeout looking on 3 pitches. And then State's right back to work on the sticks. And at this point, you kind of knew it was going to be an empty to bitch type ball game. Garrick Fry doubles to center field. And then Reeves pokes one through the left side there. Sends the runner around to third, and then Reeves still second almost immediately. They walk Noah Sullivan to load the bases. Hunter Hines flies out to right, ends up being an RBI sac fly, tags, and Fry scores there. Wild pitch, and it's pretty crazy here. Ball in the dirt, and Sullivan takes off for second. They throw down, and then Reeves comes in to score. So they record the out at second, but Reeves, pretty good secondary lead there, just kind of reads a throw and gets in without a throw home to make it an 8-1 ball game. They walk Bryce Chance, who's on base for his second time in the game. And then Gat Sanders. Singles to center, they misplay it, and Bryce Chance was thinking third the whole way. And so they wave him around, and on the miscue, Bryce scores, and really good hustle on Bryce. I thought him both times on base early in this ball game. I thought Bryce really ran hard and played well. Sander goes to third on a wild pitch, and then Downs is hit by the pitch. They finally pull Jeremiah Newman from the game, and then AD still second. O'Brien goes down swinging, kind of a wild swing there. Probably swung at ball 4, but it's a 9-1 ball game going to the third. We bring in Duke Stone in place of Ryan McPherson. Needed to get Duke a little bit of work. We think Duke's going to be a dude down the road. He gives up a solo home run on a full count to make it a 9-2 game. Just 2 of their 3 hits came on solo home runs. The third hit and final hit of the ball game came with the next at-bat. Biker singles to second base there on an 0-2 count. And so now all of a sudden you start worrying about this. We get a tap back to the mound. We're able to get the play at first. They walk Thibodeau, who is easily their best offensive player. We get Tamar Bates to fly out to right. Thibodeau takes second. And again, at this point, it's a 9-2 ball game. They're going to run their offense, though. The Mac strikes out swinging. Bottom of third, Heifel flies out to left. Fry is hit by the pitch. Again, it's like there's a lot of that with this. Reeves then walks, and we bring in Steven Spalletta to pinch hit. Now, you remember 2 falls ago, Steven Spalletta joined the team. He was originally signed with Tulane. Some things happened. They didn't come through with all the financial aid they promised him. He asked out of his letter of intent. He ends up coming to Mississippi State, and he leads us in home runs in the fall that year. And everybody's thinking, we got to get him on the field. Well, defensively, wasn't quite where he needed to be. We get him out there last night, and that home run that he hit was an absolute moonshot. First pitch he sees, he gets a hanging breaker, and he hits it. 3-run shot, makes it 12-2. They bring in Prosper in place of Stewart. He gets Hines to strike out swinging. That's Genesis Prosper, left-hander. Walks Chance again. Again, Bryce, 3 at-bats, 3 plate appearances, gets on base all 3 times. Buckner then singles to center field. It's good to see that kid play again. He pinch hit for Gat Sanders, took over at second. And then Aaron Downs grounds there to short. They force a runner at second. And then, this is where Spalletta's in at DH, Buckner's at second. Landis Davila goes in place of Downs. And then we bring in Jacob Pruitt, who hadn't pitched in a while. Pruitt gets a ground out to second, a pop up to third. He's just kind of rolling along there. And next thing you know, we kind of struggled to locate a little bit against Joseph, walk him. And then they pinch hit with Carr, and he grounds out to short to retire the side there. State goes 1-2-3 in the fourth. And again, that's kind of what happens when you get a little bit deeper into this thing. That's 8-9-1. Fry gets out to close out the inning. Our top of five, Dylan Cupp enters at short. Stallman takes over and left for Bryce. So again, good night for Bryce at the plate. Biker grounds out to short. White grounds out to the pitcher, and Thibodeau strikes out looking. Really, really good pitch there from Dane Burns. And Dane knew it before the hand even went up. Bottom of five, Cupp reaches on a fielding error. Just kind of a wild. The throw was a little bit low, but it's a play he's got to make. And I think he actually got the glove under it and just didn't scoop enough. So ball comes out. Cupp is safe. Spaletta then rockets one back to center field, and Cupp comes around to third. Hines grounds out to second, but another run scores. No RBI because it is an unearned run there. And then Stallman strikes out swinging. Hunter Hines now in third place all time in RBI. About 13 or so behind Palmeiro. He won't catch Richard Lee at 265, but a good chance to catch Palmeiro. So again, chasing history. Now second in home runs and third in RBI is Hunter Hines. Stallman goes down swinging, and Buckner fouls out to third. Top of six, 1-2-3 inning here, but it's Burns to get the first two, and Kevin Manell, who hadn't pitched in a while, comes in and strikes out Bird on 3 pitches. All right, bottom of six, they're getting kind of liberal with their substitutions as well. Davila strikes out swinging. O'Brien walks, and Heifel grounds out to the pitcher, but O'Brien takes second. Then Nate Chester gets in the ballgame, and Nate gets to walk, but it's interesting. It's a full count, and they call the pitch clock violation on the pitcher and award him first base. Then Cupp doubles down the left field line. Good to see Dylan out there, too. Dylan made a couple of really nice plays at short, too. He doubles down the left field line, chases in 2 more runs to make it 16-2, and then Spaletta strikes out looking on a full count. And then Southern goes 1-2-3 in the seventh. And so that's your ball game. And that's the way those games should go, right? That's how they should go. Everybody will acknowledge that. It wasn't, some big win. And Southern's a team that'll be very competitive in their league. I think they're 8-7 right now in the SWAC. There'll be a team come tournament time that is going to be difficult in their league. Their weekend pitchers are a lot better than what we saw last night. But your Bulldogs, your hitting heroes, Garrick Fry was 2 for 3. Sawyer Reeves 1 for 1, but also had 2 walks and scored all 3 times. Dylan Cupp comes in, goes 1 for 2, drives in a pair, and scores 1. Noah Sullivan 0 for 0. Walked both plate appearances, and then Steven Spaletta was 2 for 3. 3 RBI for him, of course, on the big fly there. Hunter Hines goes 1 for 3, but has 4 RBI. You got to like that. Bryce Chance, we mentioned 1 for 1, but 2 walks too. And that's really what we need Bryce to do, right? Just go out there, get on base, keep the fire burning, right? Keep the fire burning. Buckner goes 1 for 2. And then from there, hitless in that bottom third, I guess. But that's one of those things we kind of got figured out. But it was good to get a lot of guys some work last night. Makes for a happier dugout, I mean, you work as hard as everybody else, and maybe you're not quite as talented, or you're playing behind somebody that's a veteran. You don't always get on the field. So a lot of players last night a chance to get out there and get some swings and get rewarded for their work. McPherson goes 2 innings pitched, allows 1 hit on 1 run, 4 strikeouts, no walks. Duke Stone, 2 hits, 1 run, walked 1, struck out 1. In 1 inning of work. Pruitt goes 1 2/3 of an inning and walks 1, but that's it. Faced 6 hitters, retired 5 of the 6. Dane Burns, a perfect inning for him. Faced 3, retired 3, couple ground outs and a punch out. Kevin Manell only pitched that 1/3 of an inning, and of course, strikeout there for him. And then Cato Leary, I thought was, again, we got some young arms that are going to be, I think, real dudes for us in the future. I think McPherson and Stone, Dane Burns, Cato Leary are all in that group. Cato Leary was the guy that went to MLB Combine. He looked absolutely filthy in that final inning. Only 13 pitches, but he gets 2 punch-outs and then gets a ground out. So great effort from Cato Leary. Ryan McPherson awarded the win. It's kind of a predetermined outing for him. He goes 4-0. Jeremiah Newman drops to 0-2. So that's your ball game. And it was really interesting, too. A night in the SEC or an afternoon in the SEC, depending on how you want to look at it, most everything went to script, just about everything. And, of course, there's one score of note that we want to talk about, as you guys are well aware. And so we'll look back at the Tuesday scoreboard here. It was the education game. It started, I guess, like 11 a.m. And brunch baseball doesn't work well for the home team. And I've talked to people about this before. And the perception is this, is when you're the visiting team, you're already in game mode, right? Because you still have to travel, right? So like you are getting locked in on the ride to the venue. You check into the hotel, you know what I mean? It's like there's a lot to it. The only thing that really changes is the game time. But when you're the home team, you know, you're home and you got people stopping over, you know, and it's like, oh, I got to get up in the morning. We got a ball game at 11, you know. And so I don't think you're quite as game ready. And I think that's what happened to Ole Miss yesterday. Little Rock, coached by former Diamond Dog catcher Chris Curry, of course, made a name for himself at Meridian Community College. The Trojans, 16-19 now, they pulled the upset over Ole Miss. And to be honest with you, it wasn't like some fluky thing. A 3-run third gives Little Rock the lead 3-1. Ole Miss gets one back in the fourth. They tie it in the seventh. And you think, okay, well, Ole Miss will go ahead and finish this thing out. No, the other way around. Little Rock closes this thing out with 2 in the eighth and then 2 in the ninth. Now, you have the big burst. They still have 2 times to hit, and then you come back in the ninth with 2. Pretty good deal there. Blake Van Cleve, 2 for 2. A 2-2 record, your winning pitcher in relief. Tennessee, mercy rolls Bellarmine, and don't we all? But, Dean Curley, a 3 for 5 day for the Volunteers as they win 13-3. South Carolina gets by the Citadel 4-0. Man, the Gamecocks are really hurting. And that's the thing you begin to think about now. Like Ole Miss is going up there. Of course, we're gonna play Ole Miss, so the RPI is fine. But man, wouldn't you love it? Like if South Carolina could find a way to get a game, they'd love to get 2. I just can't see it, and we'll talk about that later in the week. But South Carolina struggles with the Citadel a little bit, but a 3-run second kind of gave them some cushion. They actually got out hit in that ball game 7-6. And Henry Kazmaier, who had those 2 home runs against us in the Saturday game, 2 for 3 last night. And Tyler Pitzer in relief gets the win. Stetson made it fun for a while in Gainesville. They've been really good in their league, 13-2. We talked about 24-14. You know, they're going to be a tournament team. And to catch them in the midweek, it's tough, right? But Stetson gets out to a 2-0 lead. Bobby Bozer, the third baseman, transfer from South Florida to Florida, hit 3 tanks last night for the Gators. Yeah, got 14 on the year. But you look up here, and it's a 4-4 ball game in the third, and you start thinking, man, is Stetson going to find a way to do it? And Florida dominates the rest of the way. Alex Philpott works 3 1/3 innings. They could probably use him on Sunday if they needed to, but they felt maybe last night was kind of a turning point for him. But he's 2-3 on the year. Oklahoma State. We've played both of these teams, but obviously, we need Oklahoma State to be good in their league. They're only 5-8. Oklahoma takes care of business with a mercy rule in 8 innings. They get 5 in the first, 1 in the fourth, and this happens in Stillwater. You go on the road against your rival team, and you mercy rule them in their own backyard. That's a tough pill to swallow, right? I think we all would agree. But it's a 6-1 ball game headed to the 5th, and then from there, Oklahoma kind of removes all doubt there in the 8th and puts it away. And anytime that you can get the mercy rule thing, that's incredible. But Oklahoma State with just 4 hits in the ball game. Lipscomb and Vanderbilt, man, that turned into a barn burner of a game. I don't know if you expected that. Lipscomb now 15-20 on the year, 8-7 in their league. Vandy 27-10, and again, offensively, this Vanderbilt team is not great. Pitching's been good, but they are not great. So Vandy gets up 2-0, and then in the top half of the second, Lipscomb ties it. Vandy gets 2 more in the fourth, and you think, okay, they'll cruise now. But no. Lipscomb gets 1 in the seventh, 1 in the ninth to force extra innings. And then Vandy walks it off in the 10th. Lipscomb actually out-hit them 11-6 in this ballgame, and they lose 5-4. Arkansas with a mercy ruling of Arkansas Pine Bluff, 13-3. Auburn really struggled with Jacksonville State. And Jacksonville State, not a bad mid-major program, as you guys are aware. And you get them on a midweek game at their place. Any crazy stuff can happen. But Auburn jumps out 3-0. And then after the 8th, Jacksonville's tied the game at 3-3. And so in the 9th, Auburn gets 1 and ultimately closes it out in the bottom half to win 4-3. Jacksonville State just 2 hits in the game. You know, Butch has got the pitching staff rolling now. And you know Butch, right? You know Butch Thompson. Butch is not going to keep rolling out pitchers that aren't going to compete. And when you go into somebody's backyard, even in a midweek game, you hold them to 2 hits, that's a good effort. Auburn with 9 hits in the ball game. Georgia and Georgia Tech. We talked about the Georgia offense on the road, right? When they went to Florida, it's like, hey, that kind of raised my eyebrows a bit. And, of course, Florida was having to pitch kind of some down-the-bullpen guys in that ball game. But they go to the big park, and Georgia Tech wins the game 5-2. Georgia Tech with 10 hits, Georgia with just 4. 2 of those 4 came from Will Baker, who also hit a home run. And so not a lot going on with that Georgia offense. And, again, that's something that I'm just kind of throwing it out there for observation purposes. I think this Georgia offense, they need to make sure they host all the way to Omaha to get to Omaha, because I think in a bigger ballpark they're going to struggle. That's my feeling. You may see it differently. And, of course, Mississippi State takes care of Southern. And we were kind of pulling from Missouri State, who, again, they're going to win the league. But Missouri gets them 10-9. And a 7-run second inning proved to be the difference. And from there, Missouri State's kind of playing catch-up. And we know those guys can really swing it at Missouri State. But they get 1 in the 4th, 5 in the 5th, and then 1 in the 6th. And now all of a sudden it's a tie ball game. Missouri answers with 3, and they get to the 9th, and then Missouri State gets 2 in the 9th, but can't get over the hump, and that's your ball game. Caden Boggenpole had a good weekend against us, really good swinger, 3 for 5 with a home run in the ball game for the Bears. And then Texas A&M takes down Tarleton State 11-3. Kentucky kind of survived a tough one against Miami of Ohio. Now, the Red Hawks are 19-17 overall, but in their league, 14-4. And this Kentucky offense has been pretty much up and down, right? I mean, again, they lost a lot. This is not a criticism of Nick by any stretch, but Kentucky had to walk it off in the 9th inning to win 4-3. Cole Henschel gets the win in relief for them. Alabama struggled with UAB for a while, too. That's a team we just played last week. We talked about Logan Brunswick last week, and he's really an SEC player playing at UAB. That kid's really good. But Alabama gets up 1. It's a tie game after 3. And then UAB takes a 2-1 lead into the 5th. Alabama gets 2 in the bottom half, and all of a sudden you think they'll cruise. But no, UAB comes back with 1 in the 7th. And then ultimately, Alabama gets 2 there and then closes it out 5-3. I think this is a really good Alabama team. I don't think they're great. And I think the weekend shows that. Again, I'm not down-talking the opponent. I think the fact that they were elevated a little bit early on because they caught A&M at such a good time. And I think what we're seeing now is maybe outside of Texas, there's not really a dominant team in this league. That's how I feel. Maybe you feel differently. But I think Alabama is a team that is only going to they're going to make tournament, no doubt about it. But I think they're going to slip on out of the hosting discussion. I think LSU takes care of McNeese 10-3, and then Texas takes care of Texas Rio Grande Valley 11-4. We'll take a quick look ahead. There are no games tonight on the SEC schedule, but several series are going to get underway on Thursday. You know, we used to all do this Easter weekend, but they do save some for the traditional Friday, Saturday, and Sunday deal because of the TV contract. But Ole Miss and South Carolina will get underway on Thursday. That's going to be your first pitch. It's going to be a 5:30 Central first pitch. and it'll be interesting. Of course, we're going to see those guys on Tuesday, so you may want to do some advanced scouting Thursday night. Georgia will be at Vanderbilt, and I'm eager to see Georgia's offense against Vandy's pitching staff. Vandy's not going to win a shootout with Georgia. But can the Vandy pitching staff hold Georgia down a little bit? Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. We don't play either one of those teams. I think maybe it might help us if Georgia wins the series. Oklahoma's at Missouri, so you got to feel good about Oklahoma there. Alabama will beat LSU, and LSU coming off a weekend where they got shut out and swept. Well, not shut out, but swept by Auburn. That's going to be an LSU team playing with purpose. Now 10-5 in the league. And I like this LSU offense. And having to play down there, it's just a different deal. It just is. And I don't know that Alabama is really ready for that. Because, what you see on TV at College Station doesn't really match up to what you see. Everybody's like, oh, it just seems so crazy on TV. It's not that loud there. When you go to LSU, it's loud. And it doesn't matter if it's half field, it's loud. And the longer the ball games go and the more beer they sell, the louder it gets. LSU fans really support their team. It is a very difficult place to go play. Texas A&M will beat Arkansas. That has all of a sudden become a very interesting series. At the beginning of the year, we all saw that and said, you know what, that'll be a lot of fun. Then we thought, probably not. I think now we're probably thinking, you know what, this is going to be a good one. Auburn will be at Texas. Now, that could be a fun one, too. Texas, of course, with the turf, infield, and all that good stuff there. Auburn's got to take this thing on the road. They're not going to sneak up on Texas. And Schlossnagel's such a good coach, as is Butch, but it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. And everybody else will get underway on Friday. All right, final segment of the show brought to you. Oh, you know what we didn't do? We didn't do the Close with Blair player of the game. And we're going to give that honor to Steven Spalletta. Steven Spalletta with his first collegiate home run. So let's do the cool stuff here, right? Let's get it all rolling. Is Close with Blair, right? That's our buddy, Blair Chandler, our friend in the mortgage industry, my friend, your friend, our collective friend in the mortgage industry. 601-500-2344. 601-500-2344. Listen, if you're looking for your first home, your next home, or your retirement home, Blair Chandler's the way to go. Don't overthink it. There's a lot of people out there that won't tell you these hacks in life. When you become an adult, you don't know what to do. You say, hey, I want to buy a house. What I'm supposed to do? I don't know how to go about these things. Well, I'm telling you, let Blair take all the guesswork out of it for you. And let Blair Chandler take care of you the way he's taken care of so many others, including several Boneyard listeners. We had one Boneyard listener that they got turned down by somebody else, and Blair had him at a closing table in about a week's time. Yeah. This is a guy that knows the ins and outs of the mortgage industry. Again, that phone number, 601-500-2344. For more information, visit closewithblair.com. That's C-L-O-S-E, with Blair, B-L-A-I-R.com. And get his 24 years of experience and know-how working for you. Again, that's Blair Chandler at closewithblair.com. All right, final segment of the show brought to you by the Stark Vegas Clubhouse. The best place to stay in the Golden Triangle when you're bringing a large group of folks to town. And you know what? You should. You've always kicked around the idea, hey, wouldn't it be great? Yeah, it is great. I've done it. And I've stayed at the Stark Vegas Clubhouse. 6 bedrooms, 2, soon to be 3 baths, the great back porch area, the fire pit, the full-service kitchen, the wet bar, plenty of room to just kind of spread out and enjoy your time together. Just 5 minutes away from the Mississippi State campus. Think about that. 5 minutes away. And you know what? It's basically one turn. And the next thing you know, you're turning on the campus. Out past the Highlands. Go out, get on 182. Boom. You're there at Mississippi State. It's great. What could be better? You could do your tailgating right there. And it's not just open on weekends. It's open all the time. All the time. We stayed there for New Year's and had a ball. Be the linchpin in your friend or family group. You go ahead and check availability and then rally the troops and say, hey, we're all going to stay together here. We'll split the cost, whatever. And we'll stay. And rather than have 5 or 6 hotel rooms or Airbnbs scattered all over the county, Everybody can be together under one roof. You can smell those cinnamon rolls that Grandma's cooking right now, can't you, kids? I know you can. Don't deny yourself the opportunity to go have a great time with your friends and family. It could be a once-in-a-lifetime type deal, or it could be, you know what, hey, let's do this every year. It's so conveniently located a campus. We love being in Starkville, and it's off the beaten path a little bit, so we got some peace and quiet, plenty of parking. Go out there and just have a good time. You don't have to worry about interlopers coming in and like on your tailgate wanting some of your sausage. Yeah, it's cool stuff, man. Now, Google the Stark Vegas Clubhouse. When you do, their Facebook page auto-populates, and you can go through and see pictures of all the amenities of everything that's available to you and your guest. And there'll be some booking options that come up too. Airbnb, VRBO. In addition to that, there's the Evolve website. Now, if you choose to go that route, I can save you some money. I got a promo code for you, BSR10. Beautiful Steve Robertson 10, the number 10. Get you 10% off your stay. I mean, hey, it's the same place. You could pay a little bit more, but why would you want to? But since we're friends here, I'm hooking you up. Hooking you up with a code, BSR10. Be sure and check it out today. It's the best place to stay in the Golden Triangle, the Stark Vegas Clubhouse. All right, let's talk a little bit about this Nico situation with Tennessee, which Iamaleava, I think is his name. I always mispronounce that stuff. I used to be such an ace at that, but I've gotten older, and I just figured, I'm doing the best I can. So here's my take on that. Okay, and I'm going to be honest with you guys, and maybe you may judge me for it, and I'm okay. I'm okay with that. But there's a part of me, I hope he doesn't get a good deal. And let me tell you why. It's not of any personal malice, because I think he probably is a good guy. I read Adam Sparks' article with the Nashville paper, and he said, man, the guy's never been a problem. I think there are some people involved in this, whether it be family or friends or just his agency, that have made a mess of this. I think the young man would have been just as happy to stay at Tennessee. And they say he was making almost $2 million a year. That is just absolutely absurd to me. Absolutely absurd. But then, and again, I believe in negotiating in good faith. I understand how business deals are made. But I'm a firm believer in the deal needs to benefit both of us, right? We need to both walk away feeling like, hey, I'm glad we're doing business together. I don't want anybody holding me hostage. I don't want to hold anybody else hostage. But that's what happens here. And so it comes out, and the reporter put it out there, and Nico's dad attacks him. And then he's ultimately proven to be correct. And so it's the weekend or the week before the spring game. You're about to wrap up spring practice, and all of a sudden this stuff bubbles up, and then Friday he no-shows practice, won't respond to coaches. And based on what we've been told, that's not consistent with his character. So it's clear that somebody else was kind of steering the bus there. And so now all of a sudden it's like, number one, he's transferring post-spring, so he can't transfer within the SEC. Are there some other programs out there that have some loot? Yeah. But how many people have a war chest left in the spring? And some people were forecasting out there, hey, it's going to be, he's going to fetch $4 million. And they said that's what he was asking for. He got to double his NIL, which was ridiculous for a quarterback to be making $2 million. And to be honest with you, and I'm not going to pick apart this kid's character. I'll pick apart his game a little bit. When we played him, he didn't play well. I think everybody wouldn't agree with that. He had one big throw, didn't play well. They just basically kind of got behind that offensive line and ran the football and won the ball game. But, looking at numbers last year, so 2,616 yards passing, 19 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, quarterback rating of 70. And so you kind of break that thing down and you look at it, by SEC standards, it's a good year. It's not a great year, It's a good year. And you go back and kind of begin to look at this thing in context, and you think, man, we're paying $2 million for this? And some would say, well, it's a going rate, Steve. I don't think it is. And this is the thing that I question myself. Is this the going rate? Then just let me off the train. If we're going to basically pay an above average quarterback $2 million, and then his representation is going to say, oh no, we're going to hold out right here at the end of spring, and if you don't give us $4 million, we're going to go in the portal. Now, he's not the first to make those kinds of claims. We've had that happen here at Mississippi State. We had a player that said, hey, and it wasn't near these kinds of numbers. It's like, hey, I need X number of dollars, or I'm going to go get in the portal. I say, well, I'll tell you what. Let's wait for the portal window to close. We'll be happy to give you that money. No, I need it now. Okay, we're not going to give it to you. I'm going to get in the portal. Okay, take the train. And that's how it should be, right? But I don't blame Nico. Now, granted, ultimately, he's got to live with these decisions. But the thing that I think about that is so unfair, it's one thing if this is an offensive lineman, or a safety, right? And all those positions are important, but the quarterback? And some people are like, well, maybe he can just go back. He can never go back. He has lost the respect of the locker room. He can never go back. And now there's all these discussions now that as teams have kind of pulled out on him, now he's going to take less money. And wouldn't it be something, and almost poetic, that if he got less money than what he was making at Tennessee, and now all of a sudden, now all of a sudden it's a new group of friends. It's a new offense. Look like there's reports out now that he's going to transfer to UCLA. Okay. To me, that is inconsequential of what it all says. And then Chris Lowe here, of course. And Chris is a Tennessee guy. Okay. I mean, let's full disclosure. Very well respected. I think a lot of him. But Chris is a guy that basically, if he shares it, I believe it. And you should too, right? But the thing that I think about is how unfair this is to the Tennessee players. And you can say, well, the coaches are all making big salaries, and that's true. But it's unfair to them. But it's more unfair to the Tennessee players that have gotten out there and sweat and bled and cried and won and lost together. And then you go through spring, it's like, hey, we made the playoff last year. We got a lot of pieces back this year. Maybe we don't make the playoff, but we can kind of build again. And maybe next year, you never know what could happen. But how many reps did he take away from the guy that's going to ultimately be the starter? Right? Now you find out before the last spring practice of the year that the guy that you have put 3 years into, or 2.5 years into, is leaving over a money issue. Had you known that in December, you could have taken your number 2 and 3, let those guys compete it out, fight it out, split reps for a while, and you're preparing your guy for fall camp. And so that's the thing in all of this. And some people would say, well, feelings shouldn't matter. Well, I disagree. I think your name has to have some value. And I don't just mean monetarily. People need to know they can count on you. They can trust you. People need to know that your word means something. And this young man and the people that represent him have shown that his word doesn't mean anything. And again, there is a different level of expectation when you're the quarterback. You're the leader. You're the name of the team, the face of the program. And so that's part of the deal. If there should be anybody on your team that should be above reproach, it's your quarterback. And it's one of the things we look at like Dak. And listen, Dak's got issues too. Not in any way trying to suggest that Dak's a perfect person. but Dak in many respects was the perfect teammate. And I think that's the most important thing to consider. The guys on our program would have run through a wall for Dak Prescott. I don't know that somebody would run through an open field right now for Nico. And it's so interesting, like you pull up the game charts, the game log. I am a Leva. That's it. Guys, you look at the numbers here, like in the regular season. Like he had one big game against Kentucky, threw for 292 yards. But against Kent State, 173. Against Oklahoma, 194. Against Arkansas, 158. Against Florida, 169. Alabama, 194. Against Mississippi State, 8 of 13 for 174. 167 against Georgia. And then 104 in the playoffs. So you got 8 games. 8 games where he threw for less than 200 yards. And his people want $4 million. It's ridiculous. And here's the thing, though, is tacky as all of this is, I'm glad that it happened. I'm glad that it happened and it didn't involve Mississippi State. Because I think things like this bring change. Because right now, everybody, with rare exception, is like, this is madness. This is absolutely ridiculous. And not just about the money, but the timing of it and the fact that you've got so many third parties involved. And as I said earlier in the show, how many times in life, at what level of sports can you go renegotiate your deal multiple times in a year? Doesn't happen. Doesn't happen in the pros. Doesn't happen in any sport where you're paid professional. You don't get to just go renegotiate every few months. You got a contract. People can hold you accountable to your contract. And if you no show for practice, you get fined. And that's where we need to go. If people want to conduct themselves as professionals and be considered professionals, then there needs to be the same rule structure that applies to all professionals. There needs to be some accountability. There needs to be a fining structure. There needs to be a code of conduct. And there needs to be some assurances to the school that certain conditions are going to be met. And one of the crazier stories that I've heard here recently is that like bowl games last year. And I believe I'm correct when I say this, that Mississippi State kind of negotiates that out in the NIL deal that you get a bowl bonus or whatever. But there were a bunch of players last year around the country that their agent said, hey, we're going to need some more money if we're going to play in this bowl game. It's like, oh, we made a deal for the season. Well, this is the postseason, so we're going to be played for that. And then the guys in Tennessee were going to hold out and not play in a playoff game. You know, that's the thing, too. We all tried to defend them. We made excuses for them and said, well, you're sitting out a meaningless bowl game. It's no big deal to play. And again, that's why I have so much respect for Jonathan Abram, Montez Sweat, and Jeffrey Simmons, guys that went on to be first-round draft picks, played in the Outback Bowl. It wasn't a meaningless game to us. It wasn't a meaningless game to their teammates. But people are like, hey, I understand it. There's no point playing in a meaningless bowl game. And I contend back then there's no such thing as a meaningless game. Every game worth playing is worth winning, giving your best effort. Then we find out now that even with the playoffs, people are now using that to extort more money from the school. It's not a meaningless bowl game. You're playing in the playoffs. You have a chance to compete for a national championship. So all of that rhetoric before, it's like it's just a bowl game. No. You were wrong. You were wrong. The motivation was never a championship. And I think Nick Saban probably did a good thing by getting out when he did. And I don't mean that I think Nick Saban would have faded. I just think that today's athlete probably wouldn't have meshed well in the Nick Saban world. I still think he'd have competed at a high level, but probably not as high. Because I don't think Nick would have been able to handle the merry-go-round, the carousel that we have now when it comes to the portal and the money that's attached to all this stuff. I think he got out and is probably happy as a clam these days. But I'm glad this happened because I think it has brought attention to a broken system. See, we want the benefit of being an amateur athlete, in addition to the benefit of being a professional athlete, without the accountability that comes along with being a professional athlete. That's the problem I got with all of this. If you want to be paid, there has to be an equal set of protections for everybody involved. And there has to be certain criteria that you meet as part of a contract. Not just an agreement, a contract, a binding contract. And I see all the people out there where they're not indentured servants. Well, you know, everybody that signs a contract does so willingly. I'm willing to exchange my talent, services, my goods, whatever, for compensation for this period of time. And at the end of this deal, if I'm not happy with that, I'm welcome to go get another deal with somebody else. But again, you can't just go out there and say, hey, give me the money, and then the school doesn't have any recourse. That's why I've said for some time there needs to be a union, a collective bargaining agreement, and there needs to be assurances on both sides of this thing. But I think the bigger blame in this, Nico deserves some blame. The bigger blame in this is his family, his agent, but more importantly, the leadership of the NCAA and everybody involved in all of it to let it get to this point. Now it's their charge to fix it. And it's nuts to me to think that, the money that we're throwing around right now, it's just absolutely nuts. You know, it's nuts. And it's like everybody's like, well, hey, there's, and I was ready to stop, but I'm gonna chase this a little bit longer. When you make those trips this fall, these football trips, and you go to some places you've been a lot of times. You go watch the Bulldogs play, right? You can say, hey, every time I come to this campus, it's beautiful. Well, as a guy that continues to travel these campuses, when you're going to get to some of these places, they're not going to look as nice as they have historically. Things are a little bit messier. Things are a little more unkept. There's not as much maintenance these days. And that's not just limited to Mississippi State. Because people don't have the resources to handle a lot of those things that used to happen. You know, we hear all the time about, people in athletics are leaving, taking positions out of athletics or with other programs or whatever. And then, what's happening is people are just not backfilling those positions. And so, the person that used to be in charge of doing, X, Y, and Z, well, now everybody else is tasked with doing X, Y, and Z, and you may just decide that Z's not worth the trouble. And so things aren't as nice as they once were. Game day management might not be as crisp as it once was. And so we're all being impacted by this. Your experience as a fan is being negatively impacted by all of this. And again, we're in a period of transformation. And I still believe that they will get some things fixed and we'll get some guardrails up that make more sense. But that, in my estimation, that's the only way to fix it. Have contracts. And if there's a breach of contract, then that's the deal. And if you decide, hey, I want to sit out because I don't like my contract, you can't transfer. Because you signed a binding contract. So you put together a CBA and you put together a union and everybody gets together and there's a workers meeting and everybody kind of decides, hey, this is what we do and we'll put a labor deal together and then we'll revisit it in a few years. That's how pro sports does it. So if we want to be professionals, then we have to be professionals in every aspect. That also means, too, when you get out there and you're driving 120 miles an hour on I-20 and you get arrested, there's a clause in your contract that says that there's certain behaviors you can't exhibit, and reckless behavior is one of them, and all of a sudden you get suspended or you get fined or you get docked a game check or something like that. A lot of that would clear up if that were the case. People that value money don't like losing money. So that's where it's got to go. And again, as tacky as all of it is, I'm glad that it's happened because now we have a lot more, I think, meaningful discussion on what needs to happen moving forward. If you hadn't done so, go to DutyNobleBook.com and you can get all of my sports titles are there. That's Flim Flam, Stark Villains, Alpha Dogs, Dog Pile, of course, my personal memoir, When the Bottom Falls, and The Dude, which has been nominated for some pretty cool awards. We'll find out here in a few weeks. Won't that be grand? We'll see. You never know. The kid may win something. That'd be great. And come float with us at True Rest Float Spa of Starkville. Nothing has done more for my anxiety than that. I am a much more relaxed person because I float regularly. My wife will tell you I don't float enough. And there's probably some truth in that. With all this baseball travel, it's been a little more difficult to float. But if you're planning to come and float this weekend, you need to book ahead of time. They do fill up rather quickly during home ballgame weekends. Call 662-268-7601, or you can download the True Rest app and book online. Save yourself the trouble. Maybe you don't need the phone call. You just want to book. You can do it that way. And come be a part of our Merry Band of Misfits over at genespage.com. Just a few more days left in the 50% off the annual subscription special. Be sure and come check that out. Hey, until Friday, and until next time, let's all live our lives in a way we make more friends than enemies and people can see a difference in the way we live.